first glance, it might seem like Samsung have released the same phone again with the Fold 6, but in actual fact, it is much more than that. But that's not to say it doesn't have its downsides. But if you're even considering the new Z Fold 6, then hit subscribe now and I'll tell you everything you need to know. So first up, we'll get the big question out of the way for those of you that already have the Fold 5, and honestly, I don't think you should be considering the upgrade. The Fold 6 has some impressive upgrades, and there have been some changes. I just don't think there's enough there to warrant you losing your money when upgrading. Now when it comes to the differences though, first of all, it's a slightly new shape, and I have to say the change is for the better. It's a little bit boxier and we've got smaller bezels, and the phone's a bit shorter than last year, but it's also wider and over 1.3mm thinner when folded, which is pretty impressive. Now I sent my Fold 5 back to Samsung because I'm just used to larger phones and the cover display was just too narrow for my personal use. And although the Fold 6 is only 1mm wider, because we've also got these new trimmed down bezels, it has made it a little bit more comfortable to use, and the whole shape in general I just find a little bit more comfortable to hold, although I still wish it was just a little bit wider. The external display now has an impressive peak brightness of 2600 nits, and of course it's a 120Hz display. We get the same upgrades with the inner folding display as well. It's slightly shorter, it's wider, we've got thinner bezels, we get a 120Hz foldable display, as well as the same 2600 nits of peak brightness. And in the run up to launch, there were lots of rumors and reports about a new display that's much more durable and has a lot less creasing. And to be fair, the display looks amazing. It's bright, vibrant, and a pleasure to use even out in the sunlight. We've also got the under display camera, which is barely noticeable, but the crease is very much still there. The brighter screen does cover it up much better though, and if you've got light colors on the screen, you really can't see it at all looking face on, but with the duller colors on the screen, it's definitely still there, and you can clearly see it, but while you're using it in your day-to-day task, you really don't notice it. We also get an improved hinge as well, but to be honest, I had no issues with the Fold 5's hinge, and its opening and shutting feels great on both phones. On the rear, we've got changes to the camera module as well, but I feel as though Samsung have just done this to make it look different, that they must be aware that they're releasing similar folds year upon year. Now it's also mostly the same camera system as last year. Samsung say there's an upgrade to the ultra-wide camera for better low-light performance, but the hardware specs are still identical. I've got the crafted black version here, and I just chose this as I wanted a change to the plain colors, and I have to say I really love it. It's a carbon fiber effect, it's smooth, and we've got a nice texture to touch, so I'm really happy with this color choice. Now it's made of enhanced armor aluminium, so it's not titanium like many of the other new flagships, but it is lighter than the Fold 5, and it's also the first Fold from Samsung with dust resistance thanks to its official IP48 rating. Now powering the phone is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, we get 12GB of RAM and a choice of 256 all the way up to 1TB of storage, and there's also an improved vapor chamber for better cooling. So I ran the Fold 6 through Geekbench 6 and it scored 2250 for single core, and then 6844 for multi-core. And then I also ran my S24 Ultra through it again at the same time, and this actually scored 1874 for single core and then 6347 for multi-core, which was surprisingly much lower than the Fold 6. But this does seem to be an issue with my own S24 as it's much lower than the average of 2172, and despite multiple attempts at the benchmark, it kept happening. So I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with my S24 as it is benchmarking much lower than it should do. I also ran it through 3D Mark's Wildlife Benchmark, where we get an overall score of 4421 with an average frame rate of 26.48. But of course, for games or productivity, it's running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, so it's no surprise that it's pretty much can handle anything you can throw at it without issues. Now with the Fold 6 release, of course, most of the focus has been with Samsung's AI, and even on their own website, there seems to be a lot more information on AI than the actual specs of the phone. Now in the settings, we've got a section for Galaxy AI, and I actually feel this is pretty useful as they bundled it all into one section, so some people might not be aware of all of the AI features on offer, so you can read through this section and see what's actually relevant to you. Because of course, it's all going to depend on your individual use and needs, and some of them you may think are really useful and then others you think are a waste of time for you personally. My only issue with the Galaxy AI stuff is the upcoming paywall. Samsung have already said that they're going to be expanding AI capabilities to a wider Galaxy ecosystem, but they've also told us straight up that it won't be free forever, and there will be a charge from 2026 onwards. Now, of course, some features are going to be free and then others are going to be paid for, but given that we don't know the exact details at the moment, I'd be very annoyed if I bought the phone today because of a great AI feature, and then just over a year from now, I might have to pay a monthly fee if I want to keep it. As soon as we get any update from this on Samsung though, I'll do a whole video on the subject. Now for me, I think the translation features are great, but I'm probably never going to use them, and the transcribe feature is also good and I will continue to use that. But my favorite feature is the AI on the Samsung browser. On any web page, I can press the AI stars and you can then translate it if it's in another language. But for me, the summarize button is just great and it's something I use a lot. When I'm in a rush, I can just press the button and the AI summarizes the whole page for me into a short paragraph or two, so you get all of the information you wanted without having to spend all of that time reading it. Now there's also plenty of AI features when it comes to the gallery. We've got the usual stuff like photo improvements and generative AI fill, but it's definitely useful to have these on your phone for when you need to do a quick edit and you're out and about on the go. Now there's also something new called Draw Assist. By Samsung's words, it transforms your doodles into masterpieces, and to be fair, it's pretty impressive in the way it works and better than I expected. It's just something that I don't think I'm personally ever going to use. But if you do a lot of sketching on your phone, then it's definitely going to be very useful to you. And there's also lots of different styles you can choose from to mix things up. Now, of course, there's lots more, and we're not going to run through everything, as most of it you would have seen from the S24 launch. And for this video, I'm also not going to bother wasting your time showing you loads of photos and videos and all the camera samples, as it's pretty much the same camera system as before, so you can expect the same results. Now, of course, something I can't test is the longevity of the phone, but to be honest, with all the foldables I've used up until this point, they've all held up well. If you look after them, then they will survive well, and the only issue I've had with any of my foldables is actually lines on the screen of my Magic VS, and to be fair, the only reason for those lines is because I dropped it, and I dropped it from a fairly big height, so I'm actually surprised that the phone still works. So the important question here is, should you buy it? Well, as always, it comes down to multiple things, and as I said at the start, I don't think there's enough there to make people rush for an upgrade from the Fold 5, but if you've got an older generation Fold or you're looking to get your first Fold, then it's definitely going to be a great choice. Now, as always with Folds though, you have to have a think if you really need it and if you are going to get a lot of use out of that folding display, because if you're not going to use that folding display, you could get the S24 Ultra for a fair bit less, and you'd also get a superior camera system to go with it. But if you use the foldable display and you're a fan of Samsung, then go for it. Now the Fold 6 is actually my favorite Fold so far. My only wish now is that they make the screen a little bit wider for the Fold 7. And of course, when it comes to price, it's £1,800 for the UK, it's $1,900 for the USA, so it is a very expensive phone. And I've also placed an affiliate link down in the description below, and this is going to give you $50 off as well as a $100 Samsung credit for buying. But unfortunately, this deal only has a few days left on it. But if anyone else sees a good deal for the Fold 6, then let me know in the comments and I'll add it to the description or pin the comment. But that's pretty much it from me today, so if there's anything I've missed or you've got any questions at all, then just ask them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech.